Just recently I covered Haison Meguri, a walking simulator in which you explore a creepy abandoned village and try to uncover just why it was abandoned. In that video I mentioned the creator had an earlier game that I was also going to check out. And guess what? Here we are. This week we're going to check out Satogaeri, which can roughly be translated as returning home, and see whether this game is also worth checking out. So this game was released before Haison Meguri and, once again, is Japanese only. It's also another walking simulator with very basic puzzle elements, if you can even call them that. Again, the object is to walk around, uncover some clues about the story, and complete a few basic tasks to keep the story going. It's extremely similar in structure and gameplay, so if you enjoyed Haison Meguri, you'll no doubt enjoy this one too. But what's this story about? In brief, you play Misaki, a young woman who moved to the big city for a new job, but, well, things didn't work out quite so well for her. Misaki ended up quitting her job and returning to her parents' home in the countryside, hence the title of the game. On this particular day, Misaki is at home alone and it's starting to get dark. She goes out and explores the neighborhood for a bit, reminiscing about her childhood and how depressed she is about things now. Nearby, she spots a path that is normally closed but is now open. Naturally, she decides to check it out and, well, there she sees something that she most definitely shouldn't have. From here, the game gets darker and darker, literally, as Misaki returns home, deals with a creepy child outside, and solves a few puzzles around the house and neighborhood, all while being haunted by whatever it is she saw at the shrine. Will she make it out of the night alive, or will her curiosity be her undoing? Now, when I say the game gets darker, I do mean that literally. Like, so dark you actually can't see anything at some points. The game starts off pretty dark, but you can somewhat see things. Around the halfway mark, when night fully settles, if you go outside the house, well, good luck seeing anything at all other than the brief spots under the streetlights. I'm all for some mood lighting, but this is definitely up there as one of the darkest games I've ever played, and it's a little disappointing. The game isn't anything to write home about graphically, but I do enjoy that it takes me back to a familiar setting, a tiny little neighborhood in the countryside that's very similar to where I lived in Japan. I sure would have liked it a lot more though if I could have actually seen where I was walking and what was around me. It is what it is, and if you check the Steam reviews, you'll see pretty much that same thing over and over. The game is too damn dark. That lesson seems to have been learnt by Haison Meguri, so at least there's that, but you'll have to keep that in mind for this one. And on that note, my other complaint, another thing you'll notice constantly in Steam reviews, is that Misaki is so damn slow. I don't think I've ever seen a game character in a walking simulator walk this slow before. There is technically a run button, but that makes you move only marginally faster. And when you need to move from one side of the map to the other, you can pretty much crack out a book and read a chapter while you wait. It really is that bad. Again, this was fixed by Haison Meguri, but you'll just have to put up with it here. The game is dark, and the character is slow. Both not ideal things for a walking simulator, but I don't think they're deal breakers in the end. Just annoyances. So, should you play this game? That of course depends on what you want. This is, at the end of the day, a walking simulator. You can't die. You walk, very slowly, through a single household with a few things you can interact with, and then a just slightly larger neighborhood outside, which consists of roughly 3 connected streets, a park, and a shrine. Sadly, you can't interact with a lot of things, and unlike Haison Meguri, there are no files to collect here. The story unfolds through a brief text introduction, some lines as Misaki talks to herself, and a few cutscenes that unlock as you progress through the story. I'll make another video covering the whole story if you're interested, but in short, something shady happened at that shrine one time, and now it's coming back to haunt the present. If you enjoyed Haison Meguri, well, this one is somewhat similar, but definitely a step back if you played that first. which makes sense as this game was made before that one. But again, it's not long either. You'll probably get 30 minutes max out of it. But unlike Haison Meguri, you may struggle a little more if you can't read Japanese, as at least some knowledge is required to understand what to do next. For example, at various points you're required to find a key, to deliver a circular notice to a particular house, to unlock a shed, and so on. If you can't read what the game is asking you to do, then you'll be fumbling around just hoping to eventually come across the one thing it wants you to do. Probably not so fun with this game's walking speed. Overall, I think this game is perfectly fine for what it is, and it only costs a few dollars. You get a neat little story and a neat little neighborhood to briefly explore and keep you occupied for maybe half an hour of your time. It's not the most amazing game you'll ever play, even for a walking simulator, but I certainly didn't regret playing it either, even with the terrible darkness and awfully slow walking speed. It does also have a couple of great scares, so it's hard to argue with that. Stay tuned for the story rundown video if you want to know what exactly is going on, because I do think the story was nice and creepy. But if you don't mind fumbling around, or if you can read Japanese, then there are probably worse ways you could spend half an hour. If you have played this one, or if you tried out Haison Meguri after my last video, let me know what you thought in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.